Hey everybody, so today I just wanted to share a open source tool available for LabVIEW. So this is available in my GitLab repository if you are interested in it. The link will be in the description for the video if you want to try this out and just play with it. So basically, if you've ever worked with the database connectivity toolkit in LabVIEW, it leverages ODBC connections, so you can either pass in like a DSN string or load like a UDL file. The other option is you can just pass in a name to an ODBC connection and just reference that name. And so that's a really good way to manage database connections, because then you don't have to worry about usernames and passwords and whatnot in your code. You can have all of that stored just on the Windows system in the registry, and then you don't need to manage that, but you can just call it by name, and you can have multiple connections set up that you can call by name that could each have different permissions or connect to different databases or whatnot. So this is basically just a tool for managing those ODBC connections, which is kind of cool. So the basic idea is to be able to create the connections, delete the connections, edit the connections, or test the connections from just this software. We basically, when this starts up, this is going to populate with all of our existing names and the driver type. So there's going to be different drivers depending on what you're connecting to. So if I'm connecting to MySQL, for example, I'm going to have a certain DLL that is the driver for communicating to MySQL, which would be different than if I was working with Postgres or Access database or anything else. This list over here also populates with a bunch of databases. These are just a bunch of old ones because this hasn't run yet. But so that way you can basically select a database, and then it's going to go populate this information down here. So the driver you're using, the server, where the database is, username, password, the database you're connecting to specifically, the port, and the schema number. So this is actually really tailored right now towards MySQL. This all populates correctly regardless of database type. This information down here is actually specific to MySQL. So I'm working on generalizing this so it'll accommodate every database. Right now it's pretty specific to MySQL, but so if you're interested in working with other stuff, just stay tuned. Just working on setting up some classes and whatnot so we can kind of override based off of different types of databases and stuff. So basically from here, if I want to create a database, I can just click this, and it will give me a dialog to create one. If I want to delete the active one, I can. So I can select, one and click delete. If I want to edit this one, I can click edit. And if I click test, it's just going to take this active ODBC and try to connect to it and let me know whether it was successful or not. So let's look a little bit in the back end at how it's doing this. So on startup, we're just reading all of the current users' ODBCs. So we're pulling this right from the Windows registry, which if you've never worked with the registry functions, it's not super hard, but basically we're just opening up this key for current user, and this is user specific. There are system DSNs you can access. You would just need to change current user to local machine if that's what you're interested in. The registry view, I have it set to default. If you want to specifically only work in 32 or 64, you can. Otherwise, default will just automatically look based off of the bitness you're calling. And I have everything set to read. So this has read-only access as it's pulling this information. We are querying the registry key info, returning all the subkeys, getting the key info and getting those subkeys, and then we're just pulling out all of the ODBC names and their driver type. So that's just how we're kind of populating that table of options. We also have this function here, which is just checking if this was run as an administrator. So depending on your configuration, it may require administrator privileges to create these ODBC connections. So we're just basically trying to access some files in protected directories and seeing if that works or not. And that way we know if you're an admin or not. Sweet. So let's look at this. So when I select a new ODBC from my dropdown, we're pulling info from it by reading more registry keys. So we're looking software ODBC, odbc.ini, and pulling this information and pulling these keys. And as I mentioned, this cluster right here is very specific to MySQL. So this is the exact format to use with MySQL. So if you're not working with MySQL, this is going to have to be modified. I am in the process of generalizing this, but it's not there yet. But yeah, if you do want to just take this and modify it, this would be what you need to modify to work with like SQL Server or Postgres or something like that. And that gets us all the details about our ODBC connection. If we go to edit, we are met with a dialog. So we just have this guy, which is basically just a little event handler pop up, and I have this edit ODBC function that accepts, a selection of what you're editing, and you just pass in the new info, and it goes and updates the key values. So it goes, opens the Windows registry and updates those key values. So that way you can update existing stuff on an ODBC connection. Now let's look at, if I go to delete, it's just going to prompt and say, hey, are you sure you want to delete this? If I do want to delete it, it uses these two sub-VIs. So delete data source is going to, so we're using this delete registry key function. So we're actually deleting this key from the registry. And there's this ODBC config where we are deleting another key. So we just have to delete those two keys, and that clears the ODBC entirely from the system. Sweet. Now let's look at if I want to create. So have it set up so you get this little dialog. So you can go enter a name for it and then enter in all of your information about how you're trying to connect, and then just click continue. And then if you do go to create one, it's going to create one here. So basically those keys that we just deleted, we're just creating those keys now, and these are just creating new keys with this information. And sweet. The only other thing really is there's this test connection, which just is using the database connectivity toolkit to see if it can connect successfully. And if it doesn't throw any errors, then it was successful and it worked. So this is all open source. Like I mentioned, you're welcome to use it and play with it. This also, even if you don't want to use the GUI, comes with all of these functions for reading and writing this information from the registry. So you're welcome to just use those as well. But yeah, the link to the repository is available in the description. Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in.
Canon Controls is your gateway to mastering LabVIEW. Dive into programming for data acquisition, industrial communications, and manufacturing automation. Explore how to enhance your projects with cybersecurity best practices. Join the journey to elevate your skills and secure your systems with every episode.